What you do not say will echo the loudest in their mind. My friends, lend me your ears for a moment, because today we're diving into a secret weapon you've been overlooking. It's not in the grand gestures or the fiery texts. It's in the quiet moments, when you choose to say nothing at all, when you stop begging for answers, stop chasing closure, and stop reacting to every slight. Something incredible happens. You tap into a power so profound, it reverberates through their thoughts long after you've walked away. Folks, let's get real. When someone you cared for rejects you time and again, ghosting you, ignoring your calls, or worse, betraying your trust, it feels like a punch to the gut. Your heart races, your mind floods with questions, and you find yourself reaching for your phone, desperate for a reaction. But here's the twist. That reaction is exactly what they want. They crave your pain, they feed on your frustration, and every "why did you do this?" you send is fuel to their ego. So what if I told you the boldest move is to go silent? Not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. Picture this, you're standing in a grand library, shelves towering overhead, the scent of old books filling your lungs. Then someone drops a handful of marbles onto the floor. The clatter echoes through the entire hall, drawing every eye to the disturbance. That's what your reaction is, a loud, clashing noise that they can't ignore. Now imagine instead, you simply close the library doors, turn off the lights, and walk out. The silence that follows is haunting. It lingers, it puzzles, it unnerves them. Suddenly, the absence of noise becomes the story. Why does silence eat at them? Why do they spiral when they hear nothing from you? Because deep down, they confront their own choices. They wrestle with the memory of your smile, the sound of your laughter, and the warmth you once offered. In the deafening quiet, they're left alone with regret. Regret they can't outrun with another swipe on their phone. And that, my friends, is where the real magic happens. But hold on, this isn't some petty revenge play. This is about reclaiming your peace so loudly. It haunts their silence. When you stop reacting, you stop handing them your power on a silver platter. You become untouchable. It's like being a lighthouse on a stormy night. Though the waves crash around you, you stand unwavering, your light guiding you forward. The storm can rage, but it cannot extinguish your beacon. Let's break one of the biggest lies society tells us, that showing emotion proves strength. In reality, strength often wears a cloak of calm. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. When you internalize that truth, you transform disappointment into discovery, pain into power. You trade frantic texts for quiet confidence, sleepless nights for restful peace. So here's your first move. Embrace the silence. Let your absence speak volumes. Watch as they search for your reaction, only to find an echo. Trust me, they'll feel your presence more in the quiet than they ever did in your outbursts. And every moment they hesitate, every second they wonder, "What is she thinking? Why won't he respond?" is a victory for you. Now, I want you to write this in the comments. Silence is my power. Say it loud, say it proud. Then smash that like button if you're ready to step into your strength, and hit subscribe to join our tribe of warriors who've learned to let quiet become their greatest roar. Stay with me, because next we're unpacking exactly how to use this silence to rewrite your story and theirs. Affirmation for today. Silence is my power. Let it ring true in your heart, and watch how it echoes in theirs. Number 1. The void you leave becomes their mirror. They thought you disappeared. What they didn't realize is that you left behind a mirror. My friends, I want you to take a deep breath and let that sink in, because what we're about to unravel will challenge the very story you've been told about walking away. They said your silence would be forgotten, that disappearing would make them move on, that if you weren't around to remind them of your worth, they'd simply erase you from their minds. But here's the truth. They lied, not just to you, but to themselves, because silence doesn't vanish, it echoes. And the void you leave behind becomes something far more terrifying than any confrontation. It becomes a mirror. Imagine a room that once pulsed with your energy, your voice, your laughter, your presence. You lit it up like a melody. Every word you shared was a note, every glance a rhythm. And then, one day, you stopped. You walked out. And suddenly, the music stopped. At first, it feels like peace to them, space, freedom, relief. But slowly, that silence starts to whisper, and it whispers things they don't want to hear. Why? Because silence doesn't stay silent for long. It gets filled with their own thoughts, their own guilt, their own memories. It becomes a space where your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. And now, without your energy to distract them, they're left alone with the truth of what they did, how they treated you, and who they were in your story. That, my friends, is what drives them crazy. You see, most people think that by cutting you off, ghosting you, or rejecting you, they're removing you from their life. But in reality, they've just cleared the stage for you to take center spotlight in their mind. Every silence you leave behind is not emptiness, it's reflection. It's a canvas they now stare at, watching all the ways they failed you play on repeat. Because you're not there to argue anymore. You're not there to give them closure. And when there's no final scene, their mind replays the last act over and over again, trying to make sense of something that no longer belongs to them. Now, here's where it gets real. Many of you fear being forgotten, that if you don't react, don't text, don't chase, they'll just move on without a second thought. But let me ask you, did they move on when you begged for answers? Did they change when you reacted in pain? Or did they grow more distant while feeding off the emotional chaos they caused? The lie is that your silence makes you invisible. The truth? Your silence makes them face themselves. And that's the one thing they were never prepared to do. Let's go deeper. Think about when a song stops playing. At first, it's just silence. But then you start to hear the echo of what was once there. The lyrics, the beat, the feeling it left behind. That's what your absence does. It's like a familiar song that stopped mid-verse, and the unfinished melody lingers, gnawing at their peace, because the silence now demands interpretation. What are they thinking? Why haven't they reached out? Did I mess this up? Are they done for good? These questions don't fade. They multiply. This is why your silence becomes the mirror, because when you're gone, they can't project anymore. They can't blame you, argue with you, manipulate your emotions. The mask falls off, and what's left staring back at them? Their own selfishness, their lies, their confusion, and that's what breaks them. You must understand, it's not easy. Choosing silence takes discipline. It takes restraint. It takes you standing in your own truth, even when everything in you wants to speak, explain, defend. You'll have moments where your hands itch to type that message. Your mind will scream, say something, get closure. But I want you to remember, your silence is not weakness. It is strength wearing a crown. Because silence is not about being passive. It's about being powerful. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And your enemy in this story, it's the chaos they created, the emotional roller coaster they strapped you into, the mind games, the rejection, the confusion. When you go silent, you step off that ride. You say, "This chapter ends without screaming. It ends with me choosing peace." And that, my friends, is when the tables turn. That's when they start to wonder where your pain went, why you're not reacting, why they no longer feel important in your story. And while they sit in the silence, trying to decode your calm, you're rebuilding, you're healing, you're growing in the shadows like a tree growing roots, silent, unseen, but powerful beyond measure. So here's what I want you to do. Right now, write this in the comments. I leave behind silence, not to punish, but to reveal. Say it, feel it, believe it. Let it be a declaration that your silence is not a weapon of revenge. It's a mirror that reflects the truth. And when they finally look into that mirror, they'll see everything they ran from. If this message spoke to your soul, if you're tired of being misunderstood, dismissed, or emotionally drained, then hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel, because this is a space where we rise from the ashes, not with rage, but with power. The kind of power that speaks even when you say nothing. And stay with me, my friends, because in the next section, we're going to expose exactly why your silence not only confuses them, it breaks the control they thought they had. What happens when you stop chasing? What happens when you stop reacting? The answer will shock you, and it might just set you free. Number 2, you're not chasing anymore, and that's what hurts them. They could handle your anger, they could handle your heartbreak, but what they never prepared for was your silence. My friends, let's talk about the shift they never saw coming. You used to chase, didn't you? Let's be honest, you reached out, you over-explained, you made excuses for their silence, justified their inconsistency, and tried so hard to be enough for someone who couldn't even see you. You gave them every chance to correct their behavior, to step up, to stay. And when they didn't, you still gave them a front row seat to your pain. But something happened, something powerful. You stopped chasing. And my friends, let me tell you, that is when it all started to unravel for them. Here's the thing they don't tell you about people who are used to being chased. They confuse your attention with their worth. As long as you were texting, calling, pleading for answers, their ego felt fed. It didn't matter if they cared. It didn't even matter if they deserved it. What mattered was the game. And in the game, you were always running while they walked away. But now, you're not running. You're not watching their stories. You're not sending those late-night messages. And you know what? They feel it. They feel it hard. Because your absence isn't just quiet. It's cold. It's disorienting. It's like pulling the plug on a machine they didn't even realize they were dependent on. Let me break a lie right here. They weren't strong because they didn't react. They were comfortable. They had control. But now, you've flipped the roles without saying a word. You're not trying to win them back. You're not fighting for space in their life. You've disappeared into stillness, and now they're left with the unsettling silence that follows. Imagine it like this. You were once the sun in their sky, warm, glowing, reliable. Your presence gave them life, gave them comfort, gave them power. But now, you've turned into a winter sky, silent, icy, unreachable, and they can't handle the freeze, not because you've done something wrong, but because their ego relied on your warmth like a crutch. They mistook your light for weakness, but in truth, it was your love, your attention, your chasing that made them feel valuable in the first place. And now it's gone, and now they're the ones in the cold. You see, ego can handle hate. Ego loves hate, because hate still gives attention, it still gives energy. But ego crumbles under indifference. When you stop reacting, they don't just lose control, they lose identity. Because part of who they were was built around the way you made them feel. You were the mirror they admired themselves in. And now, the mirror is gone. Do you know what that does to someone? It shakes them, it breaks their illusion of superiority, and suddenly they're not so sure of themselves anymore. They start questioning, did they move on? Do they not care? Did I lose them for good? That's not just confusion, that's psychological warfare. But let me be real, it's not about revenge. You're not staying silent to manipulate them. You're staying silent because you've finally remembered your worth. You've stepped off the battlefield, not because you lost, but because you realized the war wasn't worth your soul. You're no longer trying to prove anything. And that, my friends, is power. When you stop chasing, you stop bleeding for someone who wouldn't have even handed you a bandage. You stop throwing love into a void and expecting it to echo back. You stop dancing for someone who's not even watching. Now you dance alone, and that's what stings them most. Because you see, when they look back now, they don't see the desperate version of you. They don't see the emotional mess they thought they could always walk away from. They see someone they can't read anymore, someone they can't reach. And that mystery, that silence, it eats them alive. So here's what I want you to do today. Write this in the comments right now. My stillness is louder than my pain. Let that be your reminder. Your silence isn't void, it's volume, it's a statement, it's a storm hidden in the calm. And if this message struck a nerve, if you've felt the power shift in your own life, then hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because next, we're going even deeper into what happens when they realize they can no longer control the narrative. When your silence rewrites the story, and they have no part in the ending. This is only the beginning, my friends. You've stopped chasing. Now it's time to start rising. Number 3, they can't control the narrative anymore. They were playing chess with your heart while narrating both sides of the game. But then you stood up and flipped the board. Now they're just sitting there, talking to themselves. My friends, let's go deeper. We've talked about what happens when you stop chasing, but there's another layer most people never understand. When you go silent, they don't just lose your presence, they lose control of the story. And that loss? It drives them mad in a way no fight ever could. Let's be real, they were used to being the narrator of your pain. They decided when you talked, when you cried, when you reached out, when you apologized. They were the director of the show, choosing the plot twists, writing your part and theirs. You were always reacting, always responding, always giving them something to feed their ego. But now, you've cut the power to the stage. The spotlight's gone dark, the audience left, and the actor is still up there, rambling lines that no longer matter. When you were vocal, whether through love or anger, they could twist your words, manipulate your tone, claim victimhood, and paint you however they wanted. But now, without your voice in the mix, they're left with one terrifying thing: silence. And silence doesn't give them anything to spin. Here's the psychological punch. They start wondering. And wondering is a dangerous thing when control is all someone ever had. Why aren't they texting me? Are they happy now? Did they meet someone else? These questions don't go away. They multiply. Because silence creates mystery, and mystery is the birthplace of obsession. You see, people like this rely on emotional access. They thrive on your reactions, even the painful ones. Because if they know how you feel, they still feel important. They still feel relevant in your life. But when you don't speak, they lose that access. They're locked out of the story. And now they don't know what role they even played. It's like this. Imagine someone reading a book they thought they wrote. They thought they knew every chapter, every plot twist, every ending. But suddenly, the pages go blank. The pen's in your hand now. And they're no longer the author. They're just a character. Worse, a forgotten one. That's what happens when you choose silence. You don't just reclaim your peace. You reclaim the pen. You start writing your story without their influence, without their edits, without their manipulation. And let me tell you something powerful. The one who walks away quietly always wins the power game. Not because they scream louder, but because they stopped playing altogether. Now I know what you might be thinking, but if I don't say anything, they'll never know how I feel. They'll never realize what they did. They'll never change. And here's the hard truth. They already knew how you felt. They knew the second they started taking you for granted. They knew when you cried, when you tried, when you stayed. But they didn't change then. So why hand them another monologue now? Silence is not about giving up. It's about leveling up. It's not about hiding your truth. It's about no longer giving it to people who don't honor it. Your silence is sacred. It's strength. It's strategy. It's the moment the story finally shifts. And for once, you're the one in control. Let me paint a picture. You know that feeling when you leave a room and suddenly everyone starts whispering. That's what your silence does. You've exited their life, and now the room is full of questions. And unlike before, you're not there to answer them. They can no longer distort your words because you've given them none. And what does that leave them with? Their own reflection. And trust me, they don't like what they see. They thought they could rewrite the ending, that if they ghosted you or blamed you or played the victim, they could spin the story in their favor. But now you're gone, and all the power they thought they had, it's slipping through their fingers like sand. So here's what I want you to do right now. Write this in the comments below. I write my story with silence. Say it loud, say it clear. Because silence is no longer your retreat. It's your rebellion. It's your way of saying, I don't owe you my voice. I owe myself my peace. And if this hit you deep, if you've ever been trapped in someone else's script, then hit that like button and subscribe. Stay with me, because next we're going to explore the one thing they never expected to see from you after the silence: calm. They thought you'd fall apart, but instead you're rebuilding, quietly, powerfully, and beautifully. And trust me, they won't know what hit them. Number 4. They expected tears, not calm. They threw a match, expecting a fire, but you were water. My friends, that one sentence says it all. They were ready for the explosion. They were ready for the begging, the screaming, the chaos. They knew the buttons to press. They expected you to crack like glass under pressure. But instead, you became still, cool, silent, peaceful, and that's what truly shook them. See, when someone knows they've done you wrong, when they know they've disappointed, betrayed, or disrespected you, they prepare themselves for war. They prep their excuses. They rehearse their defenses. They brace for your breakdown. They expect to watch you unravel, because that would mean they still have power over you, that you still care, that your emotions are still tied to their actions. But what happens when the storm they were expecting never comes? That's when the panic sets in. That's when silence becomes terrifying, because silence doesn't give them a role to play. There's no argument to win, no guilt to manipulate, no drama to control. Instead, they're left alone with their own behavior, unmasked, unchallenged, and exposed. And that kind of stillness, that kind of peace, it holds up a mirror they were never ready to look into. Let me break it down with a metaphor. Imagine they lit a match and tossed it your way, confident you'd burst into flames. Maybe they thought you'd cry, rage, post cryptic quotes, or beg them for answers. But instead, you absorbed the flame. You extinguished it with stillness, and the moment they saw you remain untouched, unaffected, unmoved, that's the moment their ego started to wither. Why? Because your calm isn't silence, it's strategy, it's discipline, it's emotional mastery. And that kind of control, that's the ultimate power move. Now, let me ask you this. How many times in the past did you react the way they expected? How many arguments did you walk into thinking it would change something, only to walk out feeling drained, humiliated, and defeated? How many times did you cry in front of someone who barely blinked? And yet, the one time you didn't react, the one time you walked away quietly, the one time you chose peace over proving your pain, that's the moment they started spiraling. Isn't that wild? Because here's what no one tells you. People don't miss you when you scream. They miss you when you stop speaking. They miss the version of you that kept showing up, even when they didn't deserve it. And when you go calm, that's when it hits them. You're not trying anymore. You're not fighting for them. You're not fighting with them. You've left the ring, gloves off, heart intact, soul in one piece. Let me remind you of something Marcus Aurelius said. The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength. That's what you've done. You've stepped into your strength by refusing to perform in their circus. You're no longer a puppet dancing to their emotional chaos. You're the one in control now, and your stillness speaks volumes. They can't figure it out. They can't decode it. They can't twist it. So what do? They get louder. They post more. They act indifferent. They pretend they've moved on. But all of that, it's noise. It's the scream of a confused mind trying to make sense of a silence that wasn't supposed to come. Because calm, my friends, is the most unsettling response when someone expects chaos. It's a power move dressed in elegance. It's saying, I see what you did. I just don't need to dance with it. And that level of detachment, that level of self-respect, it screams louder than any argument ever could. So here's what I want you to remember. When you choose peace, you don't lose anything. You gain everything. You gain your energy back, your self-worth, your dignity. And they're left confused, wondering why their usual tricks don't work anymore. Write this in the comments right now. My calm confuses their chaos. Say it with pride. Let it be a reminder that you don't owe anyone your energy, your voice, or your emotional breakdown. What you owe is peace to yourself. And if this message shook something inside you, if you've been calm lately and wondered if it even mattered, then trust me, it does. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and stay with me, because next, we're going to talk about what silence actually does inside their mind, the mental loop it traps them in, and how your quietness becomes the loudest voice in their head. You've stopped the fire. You've mastered the calm. Now, let's see what happens when their own thoughts start burning instead. Number 5. The mind repeats what it can't resolve. You stopped talking, but now your silence is the loudest voice in their head. My friends, have you ever tried falling asleep in a room with nothing but the sound of a ticking clock? That relentless tick, tick, tick. It starts off barely noticeable, but as the night drags on, it gets louder, more piercing, almost maddening. That's what your silence becomes to them. They thought walking away would bring them peace. They thought your silence would be an ending. But now, it's the beginning of something they can't escape. Because silence, when unresolved, doesn't disappear. It echoes. You see, the mind is a problem-solving machine. It's wired to close loops, to finish stories, to resolve tension. But when you go silent, when you walk away without explanation, without reaction, without closure, their mind doesn't get the final chapter. It doesn't know how the story ends. And that gap, that missing piece, it becomes a black hole that pulls them in again and again and again. At first, they think it's nothing. Maybe you're just giving them space. Maybe you'll come around. But then days pass, then weeks, still nothing. And suddenly their mind becomes the battlefield they weren't prepared for. They're haunted by your last words, dissecting every message, overanalyzing every look, replaying conversations you've long forgotten. Why? Because they never got closure. And the human mind hates loose ends. They didn't get the apology. They didn't get the final text. They didn't get the dramatic goodbye that would help them make peace with their own behavior. And now they're stuck in a loop that you stepped out of a long time ago. Let me break the lie right here. They told themselves you'd come back, that you'd need closure, that you'd want to be mature and talk things out. But instead, you left them with something far more powerful than words. You left them with silence. And now, they're the ones desperately trying to understand what happened. They're the ones wondering, not you. Because here's the truth most people ignore. The person who walks away silently owns the narrative. They become the mystery. They become the question the other person can't answer. And the more time passes, the more your silence becomes unbearable. You're not around, but your absence is everywhere. Metaphorically, it's like trying to sleep in a room with that one ticking clock. At first, it's background noise, But the longer they sit in that silence, the more unbearable it becomes. The mind starts to obsess. It starts to replay the noise until it's no longer in the room. It's inside their skull. And once it's in their mind, there's no off switch. You didn't give them the emotional out they were hoping for. You didn't let them cast themselves as the victim. You didn't even stay long enough to let them rewrite the ending. You just stopped. And that abrupt stillness, that refusal to explain, becomes a psychological knot they can't untie. Here's the most ironic part. They once accused you of being too emotional, too reactive, too dramatic. But now you're gone, and they're the one pacing the room, checking your profile, typing and deleting texts they'll never send. That calm you chose, it's driving their mind into chaos. You see, peace is not the absence of sound, it's the absence of conflict within. And when someone is still in conflict with their actions, when they know they messed up, they can't stand the silence that forces them to face that truth. So while they're stuck in their loop, trying to make sense of what they broke, you're out here healing. You're reclaiming your time. You're discovering that peace doesn't require a final conversation. It just requires a decision to walk away without giving them the ending they were counting on. And no, this doesn't make you cold. This makes you wise. Because not everyone deserves the comfort of closure. Some people only learn through confusion. Some people only understand the value of your presence when they're left alone with the echo of your absence. So here's what I want you to do right now. Write this in the comments. I need no explanation. They need my silence to make sense. Let it be your affirmation, your declaration, your reminder that silence isn't emptiness, it's precision, it's intentional, it's a gift to yourself and a consequence they never saw coming. If this spoke to your soul, if you've ever felt the urge to explain one last time, but instead chose stillness, hit that like button and subscribe for more truth bombs like this. Stay with me, because next we're going to uncover the part of silence that scares them even more than confusion, your growth. They expected you to fall apart, but instead you're leveling up, quietly, relentlessly, beautifully, and the best part, they get a front row seat with no script. Number 6. Your growth in silence is what they fear most. They didn't see your power until you used it for yourself. That's the part that haunts them now, not the silence, not even the absence, but the evolution they never expected. My friends, while they were hoping you'd sit in the corner, broken and obsessed, you were doing something far more dangerous. You were growing. They pictured you checking their stories, decoding every post, watching them pretend they were fine. But instead of wasting energy on their performance, you were building something real. You were hitting the gym, finding your peace, setting new boundaries, learning to breathe without their validation. And now you're unrecognizable. See, they didn't fear losing your attention. They feared what you'd become without it, because as long as you were focused on them, they had control. But when your energy turned inward, when you started investing in yourself instead of their drama, that's when they lost their grip. That's when your silence became dangerous. It's like a seed buried deep in the soil. From the surface, it looks like nothing's happening, dead, quiet, forgotten. But underground, there's transformation, there's pressure, there's quiet growth that's preparing to break through the surface as something stronger. And by the time it blooms, It's too late for anyone to stop it. That's you. They buried you under rejection, under silence, under games. But you didn't die there. You rooted. And now you've grown into someone they can't define, can't reach, can't control. The truth is, they feel your growth, even if they never say it. They see it in your confidence, your silence, your lack of interest. It terrifies them that you're not waiting anymore, that you don't need their explanation, that the version of you who cried over their indifference has disappeared. And the scariest part for them, you're not angry, you're calm, you're glowing. And glow-ups in silence, that's revenge they can't argue with. So here's what I want you to remember. You didn't grow despite their rejection. You grew because of it. You used the pain. You turned the noise into stillness and the stillness into strategy. Write this in the comments. I grow in silence. I rise without noise. Let it be your declaration. Let them wonder. Let them regret. Let them panic. Because your growth isn't about showing them. It's about becoming you. If you feel that shift, if you know you're becoming someone stronger while they expect you to fall apart, smash that like button and subscribe. Because next, we're diving into what happens when your silence not only grows you, but starts haunting their every thought. They thought they buried you, but you were a seed all along. Number 7. They will feel the absence, even if they pretend not to. Their performance isn't for others. It's to distract themselves from your absence. My friends, let's shatter a lie that fools so many people after a breakup. The belief that indifference equals healing. That silence on their end means they've moved on. That them acting unbothered means they're at peace. No! The truth is, the ones who pretend the most are usually the ones feeling it the deepest. Let's talk about what really happens when you go silent. They don't just lose your voice, they lose your energy. They lose the steady stream of attention, validation, and presence they used to feed off. And in that silence, a void opens. A cold, gnawing space where your warmth used to live. But instead of facing that void, they start performing. Loudly. Suddenly, they're over-posting, over-flirting, over-smiling in photos that scream, "I'm fine," but whisper, "I miss you." They're laughing louder, partying harder, showing off, pretending they've upgraded, when deep down, all of it is staged. A mask. Because while the world watches them dance, deep inside, they're still talking to your ghost. That's the metaphor. Imagine them at a party, surrounded by people, music blasting, drinks flowing. But in their mind, there's a quiet seat next to them. And guess who's sitting there? You. Not the version that begged for answers, but the version who walked away. Calm, untouched, free. That image haunts them, because no matter how loud they make the room, your absence echoes louder. You see, silence doesn't always look like peace. Their silence isn't power. It's panic wearing a poker face. It's avoidance dressed as maturity. But your silence, that's the real power move. Because you're not pretending. You're not overcompensating. You're simply gone. Quiet. Focused. Evolving. They thought your silence was weakness. But now, it's the very thing that's revealing their performance. And here's the twist. They know it. Every late-night scroll, every moment they stare at your profile, wondering if you've moved on, every time they look at their phone and feel the silence on the other end. They feel it, even if they'll never admit it. Because the ones who cared less don't need to act. The ones who truly moved on don't need an audience, but when someone's still haunted, they try to bury the pain under noise. And no amount of stories or status updates can drown out a voice that left them without closure. So don't be fooled by their highlight reel. Look past the mask. They feel it. They feel you. Because silence doesn't need to be posted. It just needs to be felt. Write this in the comments right now. Their silence doesn't mean peace. Mine means power. Say it and mean it. Let it remind you that what you walked away from is still holding on to your shadow, even if they pretend they're not. If this struck something deep inside you, if you've ever seen someone pretend they're unbothered while their eyes say otherwise, hit that like button and subscribe. Stay with me, because next we're going to explore the final twist. What happens when you become truly untouchable? When their regret arrives too late and you've already built a life beyond their reach. They're performing, you're transforming, and trust me, they feel every second of your silence. Number 8. You've already won because you've moved on. They lost you, and now they don't even get a reaction. My friends, let's make something crystal clear. You've already won. Not because they're thinking about you, not because your silence is eating at their pride, but because while they were still playing games, you moved on. You didn't just walk away from them. You walked toward yourself. They built a cage, thinking they could keep you there with breadcrumbs of attention. But now, the cage is empty, the door swinging, and you're soaring above everything they once used to control you. No more waiting, no more explaining, no more chasing. This was never about revenge. It wasn't about making them suffer. It was about finally setting yourself free. The fact that your silence drives them insane is just proof that you've evolved into someone they can no longer reach. Someone they can no longer manipulate. Someone they never truly deserved. You're not reacting, you're not checking, you're not hoping. You've outgrown the entire game. And the most powerful move? You never even announced your departure. You just left, with dignity, with peace, and with your power intact. So write this in the comments and claim it. I choose peace, not performance. I choose silence, not validation. Let it be your reminder that freedom doesn't come from making noise. It comes from choosing yourself without explanation. If this is your moment of rising, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me, because you're not just moving on, you're moving up, and no one gets to pull you back. You've already won. To wrap this up, my friends, remember this. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. You didn't lose them. They lost access to someone who was growing, healing, and rising in peace. You're not the same person they walked away from, and that's your power. If this message hit home, show your strength by hitting that like button, sharing this with someone who needs it, and subscribing for more Stoic truth and transformation. Drop your affirmation in the comments. I choose silence, not validation. Let the world feel your power without you saying a word. This is your time. Let's rise together.